So fellas, the first thing I'm going to try to do today is go to the, turn the radio off, and go try to trigger the Ursula mission. But one of the things I want to talk about in the meantime is the Marvel vs. DC Shadow War that's going on currently. I use the word Shadow War sarcastically, as it's not really a war. It's not really in the shadows. But no, apparently there's a huge subsection of the DC fan base that, for some reason or another, 100% legitimately believes that Marvel executives are paying critics to be overly critical of DC properties. And I don't think that's the case. I just think critics do what they do, and they're critical of the DC films because they should be. The DC films are not good, or at least not as good as they should be, right? Like in the current marketplace of superhero films, you got stuff like what Marvel's doing, and they're doing some great stuff, even though some people say there's too many of them, but I don't think so. But they're doing some great stuff, and then you got like stuff like The Incredibles, you know, Big Hero 6. But then you got DC, who's just not on par with what I just mentioned. The Marvel, Pixar, all those people. So they're saying that the reason Marvel gets such high scores from critics. The hell's happening there? I wonder what's going on here.
Are you crazy? What are you doing? Either join the party or get the hell out. We will walk.
Got him. Got him. Wait. There's something I can grab. What could it be? Okay, well, I'll just leave. I got better stuff to do anyways. But no, there's a, oh, excuse me, cop, I don't want to bump you. I am. I just bitch smacked one of them. But no, there's a, basically they're saying that the reason, stop me dead in my tracks. That the reason Marvel and Pixar films get such high praise is because all the critics are in the pocket of Marvel. It's a big conspiracy theory, but it's just so surprising that so many of these DC people buy into it, you know? Like, there's this really popular user on Twitter, and I think he does like comic book reviews and stuff, but his banner is of Wonder Woman, his avatar is of Superman, and he primarily discusses DC books and DC films, and he 100% buys into the conspiracy theory that, that, you know, Marvel has all the critics in their pockets. He in fact states it all the time on his Twitter. And I've called him out on Twitter before for it, and he ended up blocking me because I had, you know, some valid points I thought, but he didn't like them. It's right around here. I'm just wanting Ursula to come out. Okay, well, unfortunately it looks like Ursula is not going to come out. One moment. I'm going to pause this for a second. I need to set up my timer. Let's see, clock. And go. Okay. But one of the he's one of the like, top tier DC reviewers. He's got a lot of respect. A lot of people tend to, you know, agree with a lot of what he says. This is downtown cab. Yeah. Okay. And I'm going the wrong way. But I called him out on it, you know, because he was just promoting. Allie, I'm recording a video. Alright, we'll see you later, dude. But no, like, I called him out on it, you know. Just because I felt like I had to. There was such a big portion of people that were just blindly agreeing with him. Because, you know, I get the fact that you're upset that your films that you like aren't doing that well, but you have to be an adult about it, you know? Like, I'm a huge horror fan. I love scary movies, I love horror films, and people are consistently overcritical of horror films, and the mass majority of people agree with what the critics are saying, right? And that's fine. The films I like don't have to be critical darlings for me to still like them. And I don't have to cook up some crazy conspiracy theory about, I don't know, romantic comedies or whatever else is doing well, I guess. I don't know what's doing well. Dramatic films, right? Films like Fences or Moonlight. I don't have to cook up some crazy conspiracy theory about those filmmakers being, you know, paying critics to be overly critical of horror films. Just makes very little sense, and I think it's kind of crazy. But like, what eventually drew my attention to this was like the Batman vs Superman. I saw on Reddit and I saw on 4chan that the audience score for Batman vs Superman was incredibly high, but the critical score was not as much. Like Rotten Tomatoes, it was rotten, but the audience score was fresh, right? And there's that meme where Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor is saying, "One of you is lying to me." I always thought that was really funny. But when you dig into the actual reviews, oops, sorry. But when you dig into it, like, the reviews will be honest, critical reviews saying the film could have been better and stuff like that. And this is from the audience side of things. They would be saying stuff like, "Oh, the film could have been better, should have been better. I didn't like it. 5 stars." So they were blindly giving it 5 stars to oppose, to directly oppose the critics who they believe are in the pockets. Ooh, lots of taxis. Are in the pockets of Marvel. And that's just something I thought was kind of weird. I'm gonna be a taxi driver now. Turn that off. But no, it's just a weird thing that's happening, and it's so prevalent on Twitter. It's like, once you start noticing it, you just continue to notice it. It's still there. And I argue against it as often as I can. Not because I don't think the critics are overly critical of Marvel or of DC. They are critical of them, but I feel like it's justified. You know? The DC properties are huge disappointments for me. I really wanted Justice League to be really, really good, but it was, dude, get in. You got places to goddamn go? Yeah, I thought so. But no, like, they're just over dramatic, melodramatic, poorly shot. In the Justice League movie, it was just bad CGI. I mean, I haven't seen CGI that bad in a while. And if you're gonna use CGI, use it well, right? Like, It just looked bad. Like some of the CGI, oops. Like some of the CGI I see on the DC television series are better than what was in the Justice League movie. It was a big, ugly mess. And that's just what I thought about it. And that's what a lot of the critics thought too, you know? But then you got some of these DC fans that are just really mad that people aren't liking their movies, you know? And I understand the fear, right? Every time I see a film that I like be overly criticized, I'm afraid that, you know, it's going to be seen as a risk to make any more of those movies, right? Like, people were unjustly critical of Hereditary, which is a scary movie, a horror film that I thought was really, really well made. And just good. It's one of the best horror films I've seen in a long time. Has great atmosphere, great acting. Everything about it is great. Even like CinemaSins did a video on it, and even he was somewhat praising it. So I'm not saying he's a critic you should trust. He doesn't take himself seriously. And I think, well, that's a whole different thing I'll talk about later about him. But even he gave it praise in certain aspects of his fun little video that he does, you know. He does no film is without sin, and he does it for everything. But you know, even he gave it praise, but then the critics are just tearing it apart. And I'm not talking about like paid critics, I'm talking about audience reviews are tearing it to pieces.
By the way, you're a douchebag.
Oh, you son of a bitch. I'll get you.
Hey, you got fools like me.
I'm gonna go pick up that money. Where is it? Found it. Can get back in my taxi now.
Anything going, dispatch?
Yeah, call came in. Up on EPS now.
Sure, I can take that.
I gotta be going the right way. How am I not going the right way?
Roger that. I'm sending you the location now.
Oh. Hop in. But no, it's just, I really like that movie, but the audience reviews are just lambasting it, dude. Like, I get on Letterboxd, and I get on Rotten Tomatoes, and I get on Metacritic, and it just sucks to see the audience tear into it so much. And it's getting snubbed, like at award shows. Like, it's not even being nominated, and it's just a masterfully done film. But because it's a horror film, it's not gonna get, you know, any praise, because critics, for some reason, have decided to just hate horror films, just instinctively, right? And I don't think horror films are things that should be taken too seriously. But I think when one is taken seriously and it's done well, like The Killing of a Sacred Deer, Super Dark Times, Hereditary, The Witch, Apostle, there needs to be more reward for it. Because more reward means more likely that there'll be more of them done that way, right? But I understand the fear that the DC fans have, because it's scary when critics are tearing into your film, because then maybe filmmakers think, hey, let's not make any more of these, you know? And that's a reality now, I think, because didn't like Ben Affleck opt out of being Batman again? Aren't they like retconning the entire universe they built up, starting with Man of Steel? And like, Man of Steel, I thought was a good movie. I liked it. But then it kind of lost me with some of the other properties. Batman vs Superman. Like, I was going on a vacation and my friends took me out to see Batman vs Superman at a drive-in, and I liked it well enough, but I thought it could have been better. Like, normally if I like a movie, it goes in my Blu-ray shelf. That didn't go on my Blu-ray shelf. Not even the extended cut, which I also watched. No, I don't own it. Didn't want to own it. Didn't think it was all that great. I own Man of Steel, because I actually thought that one was a good movie. It's like a dark take on Superman, which is kind of fun, because yeah, you don't get to see that very often. But a dark take on Batman, it's been done before, and it's been done better, right? When you're coming off something like The Dark Knight, well, they weren't coming off The Dark Knight, but like, it's inevitably going to be compared to the other Batman movie, you know, the really, really good one. And it was. And they really should have done a better job. I mean, Justice League was just, I didn't even want to finish the movie, but I did anyway. See, that's how bad it was. But these DC fans, they get on Twitter and they spout these conspiracy theories, you know, about about how Marvel has all these critics in their pockets, and it's just not true. At least I don't think it. There's almost legitimately no proof for that being the case. You're welcome. There's no proof, except the only proof they have is that critics are overly critical of bad movies, which is a no-brainer that that's gonna happen.
I'm looking out there, dispatch.
This is dispatch. I got a job going right now.
Oh yeah, I'll take that one.
Am I pointing in the right direction? Nope. Oops.
They're right around the corner.
Where are they? Yo. But no, it's just stupid. Critics are going to be overly critical of bad films. That's just how it's always been. And you can be an adult about it, like I am, with critics being overly critical of horror films that I like. Or you can make up insane little conspiracy theories about it. But I think I picked out a name for this series I'm doing, right? Where I'm a taxi driver, right? And I ramble on about things that bug me. So I thought I could call it Rambling Taxi. I actually think that's going to be kind of neat. It's not always going to be GTA 5 though. I could be an Uber driver in Watch Dogs, so I might do a few of those later on. Watch Dogs 2 I meant to say. Oh, I want to get into the, well, before I end the little DC Shadow War thing, there's a few more points I want to hit on, I guess. Is that, like, critics are going to be critical of bad films. If you want them to stop being critical, the way to do it is not to accuse them of getting paid off by the competition. And just because the universe that you liked is ending doesn't mean that there isn't going to be one that can replace it, you know? And I do see it a lot, like people comparing modern Marvel movies to The Dark Knight. Like saying there'll never be anything better than Dark Knight.
So there's a job for you right now.
Yeah, I got that.
It honestly feels so similar to the people that say, oh, the 90s cartoons were the best. Right, quit comparing things that don't need to be compared, right? Just because one's a superhero movie and one's a superhero movie doesn't mean you have to compare them consistently. Right? Like, I like Regular Show, and I like Adventure Time, and I like Gravity Falls. I can also, at the same time, like Billy and Mandy, or Codename Kids Next Door. I can like both, you know? And I could like The Dark Knight, and at the same time, I could also like, you know, modern Marvel movies. I thought Infinity War was great. Nostalgia Critic, he did a video about Marvel movies recently where, like, I felt some of his frustration, you know? But no, I'm just a Marvel fan. I'm also a DC fan. Chariot Man. Just, I I like superhero movies in general. I think if I had to pick one favorite film, The Incredibles would be it though. It was just great. I love the story, the concept, everything about it was awesome. But no, let's talk about CinemaSins for a second, because there's something I want to touch on there. Is that people tend to like ruin things for me, right? Like there was a big stint in my life where I did not like Family Guy, and it wasn't because I was just blindly agreeing with the critics. There's a lot of critics of that show. It was because the fans ruined it for me. The majority of the fans that I went to high school with, when Family Guy was on air, would just quote Family Guy consistently, and it got so annoying. They would quote Family Guy and act like they were geniuses, right? But here's the thing, they wouldn't quote Family Guy in a way that you know it would be Family Guy. They would quote it, like they would quote some of the jokes that they said on Family Guy, but claim them as their own, and I just hated it so much. And I hated the fan base so much that I ended up hating Family Guy. Like, I watch Family Guy now, but like back then, that just 100% annoyed the hell out of me. Was that these fans would go and they would just quote Family Guy, right? Like, you can quote Rick and Morty to me and it won't bother me, because the majority of quotes that come from Rick and Morty, you know where it came from. You're not trying to steal the joke and, oh, I'm funny because I said this, right? Like, if you say Pickle Rick, I'm gonna know that that's from Rick and Morty. I'm not gonna think, oh, you made that up, you know? But like, they would also see stuff that Peter Griffin did, and they would think, oh, well, he's doing it and it's funny, I should be able to do it and it'd be funny still. But like, you gotta realize there's a disconnect. It's happening in a cartoon world. That's why it's okay, right? It's because none of these characters are real people. You should never do any of this stuff that, you know, Peter does to people in real life. And that should be obvious, you know?
Hey, what you got, dispatch?
I got to pick up that phone from you. Sending you the address now.
You can get that one to me.
And back to CinemaSins, is I think a big portion of his...
You're not far away.
A big portion of his critics are people that don't like the fans, right? Because the fans of CinemaSins believe that they could be little critic geniuses by quoting him, right? Like, I don't mean quoting his actually funny lines, like, oh, they must have learned to run from the Prometheus School of Running, you know? Or any of his running gags like that are legitimately funny. I mean, they quote things that he says that are bad about the film and act like they're superior, right? They say, oh, well, let's say, like, I can't think of a good example, but like things that, you know, people shouldn't be critical of, I guess. I'm trying to think of an example. No, they'll just stuff that aren't legitimate criticisms, or the majority of the content of CinemaSins videos, right? So they'll just basically say, oh, I don't like this movie, it's a bad movie because insert reason that isn't really a criticism, right? And you know they got it from CinemaSins, and you know they're just trying to act all superior. Oops. Let me get over there then.
Well done. Thanks.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Let me know if you got a pickup for me.
Perfect timing. I got a customer for you right now.
I got it.
Copy that. You should only be a block or two away.
But no, it just irks me. So I can understand that, because for the longest time I was turned off by Family Guy because of the fans. And I can see how people are turned off by CinemaSins because of the fans. It's a little jokey series that's not meant to be taken super seriously, right? Even the CinemaSins guy himself, Jeremy, has gone out of his way to say that, you know, he's not a reviewer. He's an asshole. So it's funny just to see some guy tear apart a movie for any reason. Especially with running gags and funny jokes in between. Wow. But he's criticizing a film, but he's not critiquing a film. You get what I mean? And the fans of CinemaSins, the majority of them, act like little geniuses because they think, oh, this movie's actually bad. Did you know it's actually bad because because this thing happened? And it gets on my nerves. So I can understand why a lot of people in the business don't really like CinemaSins, because the fan base is really stupid. Not all the fans, but some of them. Enough of them that it's an issue. But no, there's like a ton of great movies out there that... Oh, for real? Oh, my door. Where'd he go? Oh, I see him. Where's the hard-earned money? Where is it? Okay, I got it.
Would you come on, dang? Any jobs I can pick up?
Copy that. I've got something for you.
I'm on it.
Well, the fan base for him.
Location should be up on GPS.
I need a jet.
Whoa! Oh god, he was right there.
I know them all.
Don't call the cops. He's totally gonna call the cops on me. Fuck, he called the cops. Let's get the hell out of here. Here's a pro tip for you. If you're playing Grand Theft Auto and you get the cops calling you, just head for the hills. As far as your taxi will take you. Once I get to a somewhat flat area, right here, I'll just wait. Let's see my time. Alright, got plenty of time. But I can understand the frustration that they have with CinemaSins, especially with a fan base that stupid. I mean, I'm not the only one who's talked about it. Like, me, I am.
Sure, I can take that.
Gotta head back down to the road.
I'm sending you the location now.
Need to slow the hell down. But I'm not the only one who's made a video about the fan base of CinemaSins and about how they're kind of annoying. Oops. I think Red Letter Media has made a video about it, and there's probably a few others out there. But like, there's nothing inherently wrong with the videos he makes. It's just the fans interpret them wrong. He's gone out of his way to make sure that he assures us that he is not a critic and that he is not reviewing these films. He's picking them apart in an effort to make comedic content, and for the most part he's succeeding, but the fan base is what's really not understanding it. I guess I can also talk about a couple of films I saw to wrap this up.
I need a jet.
Your brother.
I've got places to goddamn go.
Oh, you really got on that side. You're a brave man. Yeah, recently I saw a couple of scary horror films, you know. I saw The House That Jack Built and Man Bites Dog. And they were great, you know. Shit. Man Bites Dog, essentially it's a French film from 1992, and it's black and white. It's like Clerk style filmmaking, but it's about a film crew following around a serial killer, and it's a black comedy, right? It is dark and frightening and it's disturbing as any horror film, but there's traces of comedy throughout. So technically it's a black comedy, but it's like one of the darkest comedies I've ever seen, period. He talks in depth about how to properly dump bodies, about what the weight should be and stuff. And there's one really, really funny part where he kills another serial killer by accident. Ooh, let's hit those. Where he killed another serial killer by accident, and he's a fan of that serial killer that he killed. And then out of nowhere, another camera crew burst in, and apparently that other serial killer that he was a fan of also had a film crew recording him. It's really funny.
Anything going, dispatch?
Yeah, call just came in. It's up on your GPS now.
Oh yeah, I'll take that one.
And the house that Jack built is
They're right around the corner from you.
about a guy named Jack, and he's a serial killer. So I watched 2 films.
I need a taxi.
Really? I thought I just dropped you off.
Places to goddamn go.
But it's from a director that when I hear that he's making a new movie, instantly I say, oh, I gotta see that movie. And it's all about a serial killer, and it's from Lars von Trier. I think I'm saying his name right, I'm not sure. But I've seen all of his films. Dogtown, I've seen Antichrist. There's a bunch that I've seen that he's done that I just thought were great. And one thing that he does a lot that kind of gets on my nerves is he makes endings that aren't great, right? The endings are meant to make you feel incomplete, I guess, and they feel incomplete themselves, and it's just a mess. But with The House That Jack Built, the ending was actually really, really satisfying. And it just it follows a serial killer who's sitting down with a mysterious someone that you don't know who he is, and telling him 5 incidents throughout his life. So you get to hear and see 5 incidents of a serial killer's life. And there's just so much to this movie. It's a huge, long movie, like 2 hours, 38 minutes long, I believe. But it is worth a watch. I think, honestly, this one's my second favorite Lars von Trier film. Yeah. Oh yeah.
How's it looking out there, dispatch?
This is dispatch. I got a job going right now.
Yeah, I got that.
This is my second favorite Lars von Trier film.
Looks like you're close.
My first favorite is Dancer in the Dark. I think that's what it's called. Which, it's hard to compete with that film. It's just so perfect.
Let's go, please.
And so dark and drab and just heartbreaking. Like, watch both movies if you get the chance. Watch Dancer in the Dark first, and then watch The House That Jack Built secondly. And maybe space it out a little bit. You know? Woo.
Shit! Did you try?
I can try.
Oh my god! Did we just flip over?
Yes. But yeah, they're both good movies. But I guess you shouldn't watch them in the same day. Might give you a little bit of a bad day vibe. Plus, you'll end up comparing the two, which isn't fair because they're drastically different movies. So like, if I had to recommend how you would watch them, you should watch The House That Jack Built first. Give it a week and then watch Dancer in the Dark. I think that's the order you should probably watch them in. Let me get over there. I'm gonna park here. I should probably be wrapping things up, so I'll get one more customer.
So there's a job for you right now.
You can get that one to me.
Am I facing the right way? Nope, I never am.
Okay, all yours. You're not far away.
So I guess to wrap it up, let's talk about anything really. What the fuck?
Get moving.
Yeah, rude guy. Get moving. Yeah, I love being a little taxi driver in this game. Make tons of money, have lots of fun, and I could talk about a wide variety of subjects without having to give too much attention to the actual game itself. Whew, I'm going slow on this dirt road. But no, as I said before, I've met lots of DC fans that go out of their way to be overly critical of Marvel films, right? Like, one got on Twitter and said, imagine being such a shitty company that when you make a good movie, it gets all the praise, right? No, imagine being such a shitty company at making movies that when you actually make a movie that's good, when you make like Infinity War, people actually think it's good. And then I looked through their tweets a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I did. And they all the tweets were talking about that conspiracy theory that I threw up before. Like, Marvel owns most of the critics, so most of the critics are gonna be overly critical of DC properties. So that doesn't mean DC films are bad. But here's the thing: the DC films kinda are bad. I don't like a lot of them. I thought Suicide Squad was okay. I can say that. But even it could have been better, you know. Even it lacked in certain spots, you know. Like, for one, the villain of that film was awful. The villain of Suicide Squad was the worst villain I've seen since, I don't know, I guess Justice League's villain. I don't know if I watched them in that order or not, but they're both bad villains. But the villain of that one was, I can't remember his name. Just some big, nameless, faceless monster.
Thanks.
Alright, let's wrap this up. I'm not that far away. Come on, map. Okay, map, let's go. I'll go repair the cab. But the villain just could have been better, you know? And then there's the Justice League villain, which is a big, nameless, faceless CGI mess, just like Suicide Squad.
I need a driver for a pickup right away.
Well, you're not getting one from me, sir. God, I'm going slow in this taxi. But, like, and I hear a lot of people say that the villain of Batman vs Superman was bad. But I didn't think so. Like, he was a big CGI mess, but like, I'm pretty sure it was meant to be Doomsday. I actually kind of think he looked kind of cool, you know? But oh well, I mean, like, it fits, you know, nameless, faceless, anonymous CGI messes are the majority of the DC villains now. And it's no wonder that the company, the parent company, wants to restart and retcon it, right? Like, the Aquaman movie is supposedly alright. Wonder Woman movie was great. Supposedly, I haven't seen it, but I own it on Blu-ray. Just that's how much I trusted the critical response to that movie. Was like, critics are gonna go out of their way to compliment the movie when they're normally, you know, quite critical of those types of films. Usually means it's pretty good. I'm gonna repair this.
What can the best mechanic in LS do for you?
Drop it back off here. But no, before I quit social media, I used to run into dozens of people on Twitter that would, you know, just spout that conspiracy theory again and again and again and again, and they believed it to be true for some reason. There's no evidence of Marvel paying off critics. None. And it's one of the silliest conspiracy theories I've heard in years. This dirt road is bumpy and my controller is vibrating like crazy. But yeah, there's no evidence. And it's just DC fans upset that their movies aren't being praised. Right? Oh, and I got DC Down Under that I told you about, who has tons of followers on Twitter, who talks primarily about DC properties, and he spouts that conspiracy theory often. I was blocked by him because of an argument that we had, a disagreement, where I called him out on spouting a conspiracy theory that had no evidence. And he tried to defend himself by saying that, look man, I'm also a fan of Marvel. But like, nowhere in his Twitter does he ever even talk about Marvel. Or if he does talk about Marvel, he talks about Sony Marvel, like X-Men, Sam Raimi Spider-Man. He doesn't talk about like the Marvel properties, you know, like the legit ones, like you know, Ant-Man, Guardians of the Galaxy, things like that. He doesn't talk about them. I'll park this taxi. Where at? Over there. Police are here. Are they leaving? Turn that off and go back home. But he only talks about those Marvel movies, which are more Sony than they are Marvel at this point, right? But he's consistently overly critical of Marvel films, you know, and things like that. And just, he's so full of it, you know. And I recently helped him out, you know, before I found out how he was. I helped him out on Twitter, right? He had a profile called DC Down Under, and somebody copied the username and copied the avatar and was going around saying a bunch of hateful, awful stuff. And people were thinking it was actually DC Down Under saying that. And I clarified for a lot of people that it wasn't DC Down Under saying that. That it was a troll profile trying to discredit and make DC Down Under look bad. But I ended up getting the profile deleted because I asked my followers to mass report it. And I reported it myself, and within a day it was gone. So I think I helped him out, right? Anyways, he ends up blocking me because I don't agree with his conspiracy theory. And he provided no evidence to his conspiracy theory at all, besides the fact that, hey man, I'll also talk about Marvel movies. Look at me, I talk about Sam Raimi that one time. Well, okay, but Sam Raimi hasn't been attached to Marvel in years. You know, and that wasn't Marvel, that was the majority of that was Sony. But I'm just gonna wrap it up now, and I'll find something new to talk about in the next video. Rambling Taxi. I'll catch you guys later.